Well, Genevans, it's about that time. The Christmas market is open, and for U.S. people, I think, doesn't that mean it's Thanksgiving time? That means this week is going to be kind of crazy and kind of hectic. I'm going to go quickly into it because I jump into it a little bit in the next segment, but do pay attention to the games. You're going to want to make sure you got it. This week was super exciting. We had a ton of big matchups. After this, there's 4 weeks left, so it doesn't get any easier from here. On the plus side, we're a small league, so we all get to play each other, so no one's technically out of it yet, but we're getting real close. Anyway, to find out how we did in 11 and how maybe we could do in week 12, let's take a look. With every week that goes by, I think, all right, I've talked enough about a couple coaches I don't like, and mostly quarterbacks and how crazy that's been this year. Next week, normally by now we're talking about like a wide receiver upstart, and we've had a couple of them, or running back issues and how many backups we have. But once again, when I recorded this last week, at the time of recording, we didn't know as much about Watson, but the AFC North had all 4 starting quarterbacks from the start of the year ready to go. Fast forward 1 week, we know Watson was out leading into it. Now we know Burrow's out. That's 2. Lamar Jackson left the game limping. Now, I've heard he's supposed to play, but I don't think limping is great. And Kenny Pickett, for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who was winning games, had 1 pass that went over the first down marker, longer than 10 yards in the entire first half of last week's game. I don't really know what to deal with that. I did do some math here, and so because I have to just repeat what I said at the beginning, coaches, quarterbacks, we're doing it again. We're kicking it back this week, although I'm going to do it a lot shorter. I've been going a lot longer the last couple weeks. But I can't help it. Staley, Chargers coach, I don't know if you've seen the press conference. Go watch it. Or stop asking about it. I can't believe that you can just do that. Now, granted, the media is not your boss, but to say that public favor doesn't influence some of these decisions, we know that's not true. Sometimes it is easier to sell your tickets to fans and to ease things with a coach who can at least playfully insult the media in a funny Bill Belichick way. And if you're winning, obviously, in the NFL, no one cares. That they've made that painfully clear with all of the other off-the-field issues they like to skirt aside. But when you're losing, and you're the person who calls the defensive plays, and you're losing often because of your defensive calls, I think it's hilarious that you can just say, so stop asking me. I wish I could do that. If I don't show up on time and then my classes just start and my boss is like, what happened? I'm like, hey, stop asking me. I had a morning. Well, actually, I do know a colleague that used to do that. She didn't last the whole year, but still, she did try it. So maybe it's not actually that unreasonable. But going into our quarterbacks, doing some quick math, unless I'm wrong, and this could be 50-50, because as the time of recording, not all starting quarterbacks for the upcoming week have been called. I can guarantee 19 to 21 of the opening day starting quarterbacks are actually starting this week. That means anywhere from about maybe 11 to possibly as many as 14 starting quarterbacks in week 1 are starting by week 12. Now, some of them are by choice, okay, because they're not doing so hot. Some, obviously, and most are by injury. Now, one of the big ones we had in terms of the Jets, I mentioned already the NFC North, so I'm not including them on the list. There was a couple people who got rocked, and then the Jets who just, confidence-wise, Wilson, our mother lover, got rocked. So it's just been named a little while back. Tim Boyle will be their starting quarterback. Remember, Aaron Rodgers was their starting quarterback and is still now apparently sending videos to teammates about his workouts and how cool he is. But now in the 2 New York teams, a massive media market for any sport, but obviously football, we've got the guy from Goodfellas and now the detective from Brooklyn Nine-Nine in Boyle. Interesting strategy, New York. You do you. Not that he could do much worse, though, as someone who had Garrett Wilson at least one of his pools, who ended up in the negatives. And if you watch, it's not like he was not open. You got to try something. I'd say the other one that I'd say is 50-50. The Pats have said they're sticking with their mediocre guy, which really does show that they want Mac Jones in there just to lose a couple more games and really cement the idea that they could get a top 2 or 3 pick. So good for you, Belichick. Seattle, as of right now, Geno Smith, I think, is expected to play. But if you actually watch that game, I don't understand how anyone could physically get hit harder by a person and not have it be by a truck. Go look it up. He just got rocked so hard that, I mean, I know we know that the football is, the rules favor the quarterback. It's a lot harder to hit them. And there's these touch roughing the passer calls. This is the hardest hit I think I've seen a quarterback take in the recent memory without it being a flag. He just got completely flattened. And I don't know if it's legal or not legal, but I'm surprised he's up. Apparently he was out for a while. I think he got back in the game. So I imagine he'll keep rolling, although the running back in Seattle, not so much. So that poses a good, an interesting proposal. I will get on to next week's matchups more than I normally do, just because there's so many different ones. But I did want to, because this is being recorded and hopefully will be out on the Tuesday. That's November 21st, but maybe I need an extra day to do the editing. Sometimes it takes me a while, folks. I did actually get up and did that thing where the first half of the Monday Nighter had already happened, and I just went back and watched it and then fast forwarded, the in-between commercial bits, because I really wanted to see. I mean, this is a return of the Super Bowl from last year. We had Chiefs at home against the Eagles. Massive fantasy implications for this week. So many matchups came down to this morning/night, depending on your time zone. And I wanted to see what was going on. And I have to say, it was raining, so that is going to bring things down. But it was fine. I don't think it was worth getting up for, which does not bode well for the Super Bowl. I hope it gets a little bit better, but it kind of just made me sad. And not the tush push. That is frustrating that they can just rugby play it. And it's obviously not illegal. You can't make it illegal, but I just don't know what you do aside from just hit someone with a chair just repeatedly. It does not help. And if you look at sports like FanDuel, if you're the kind of person who wagers, I don't think it helps Hurts' MVP odds, because so many of his rushing touchdowns aren't really him. It's just his line, and they just spear him in. I mean, obviously he's physically strong enough to handle it, but not super impressive. The Chiefs suck, man. I don't know who's been watching the Chiefs so much this year. Now, full disclosure, in a keeper league, I've had Mahomes since he started, since he was a rookie. So I always have a soft spot, even in most of my leagues where I don't end up having him. But he used to be super fun to watch. And he ran around. He was like a kid playing. But you realize it's because he had people to throw it to. Go and look at some of the drops. Not just the big drop from MVS at the end when he bobbled the game-winning touchdown. That was a tough pass. And in the rain, that can be kind of tricky. He should have still caught it, obviously. And the Chiefs should have won. But they didn't. And that's okay. So many people over the middle. So many people running weird routes. I don't know, just for people who like watching football, can we all throw $20 in? And if there's a million of us, 20 million should be able to buy a receiver or two from Mahomes, shouldn't he? Isn't the NFL more fun when they just have a fun offense? How many more years is Mahomes going to have in his prime? Can we get him a receiver, please? Anyone? Someone help Kelsey out too? I don't know. Anyway, on to next week. Week 12 is going to be an interesting one. Fantasy-wise, I'll talk about that later. But just for those who celebrate and for U.S. people who like putting turkey in their mouths, happy almost Thanksgiving. And with Thanksgiving, as someone who does not tend to celebrate American Thanksgiving unless I'm invited to a free meal, what it does bring is awesome football. So, football. Let's hold on the awesome. We'll see how that goes. So for those who don't know, the Thursday schedule is already set. Our midday game, which is quite nice. We get an earlier game here on this side of the pond. It's Green Bay at Detroit. Then we got our slightly later game if you want to stay up a little bit later on. I think about 10:30 my time, so you can do the adjustment. Washington at Dallas. And then the night game on Thursday, San Francisco at Seattle. And then for the first time, if you haven't paid attention, there is a new one this year. They're doing a Black Friday game. They figure once people are tired of shopping, so it's midway through the day. I think it's 4:30 Eastern time or 3:30 Eastern time. Now I can't remember. It's one of those two. Look it up. We got Miami at, wait for it, the Jets. Not the game they thought they were getting when they put this in the regular season schedule. I can guarantee it. They thought this would be like a AFC East sling fest, not a Jets defense who's surprisingly good, Miami's Dolphins offense, which is obviously good, and then Jets offense, which is obviously not. Do have some interesting one, though. The Sunday Nighter is going to be Baltimore at the Chargers, which, if you like watching Staley Clotes, let's just keep the Chargers in at prime time just so we can all get to watch the horrible calls and the post-game reactions. And then, which you wouldn't think would be entertaining, but Fields is heading into the Dobbs Stoppers Field in Minnesota for our Monday Nighter, so it should be interesting. No bye week, so we got tons of options, which we're going to need because we're getting down to it. Regardless of the league that you're in, we only got a couple weeks left at this stage. The playoff races are getting tighter. Everything is kind of mattering in terms of your positions, who you're picking, who you're putting in, what do the matchups look like. So, before we look ahead to Week 12, let's reflect on what happened in Week 11. Last week I mentioned we did have some inter-house matchups, and that's actually our first two matchups to look at. This one is a lot of things. None of them really great for one side. Biggest blowout? Check. Raf and James have the highest score? Check. Really disappointing for Kelsey and Frankie? just not because of the output itself, but just nobody really stood up from their side. They had injuries, they had underperformances, they had issues. Raf and James, not so much. So I'll try not to spike it too much on this one because actually, Raf and James made some great calls on receiver. They do have a deep bench when it comes to that. They left Metcalf, Pakanakua, and Tank Dell. Now, Tank Dell is the only one you could argue. He was our wide receiver 3, so you might think that was a detriment. But the 2 receivers they had in, Ayuk was number 2, Allen was number 5, and St. Brown, that was not a down performance at all, so it obviously didn't cost them. Even their quarterbacks, just under their predicted, even with Hurst's tush push, and Stroud had a decent game. Obviously, if Tank Dell's going to go off, someone had to throw him the ball. His picks, though, are the things that kind of help him. Arizona's got a little bit of rejuvenation with Kyler Murray coming back, and they actually had Herbert on the bench. Herbert was our quarterback 3, so it actually could have been worse if a few people came in. Aside from that, Dallas's defense, which they snaked a couple weeks ago, this is the reason why they had one of their better defensive performances. They were a defense 3, though. Defense 1 wasn't taken. If those who want the Giants, I mean, most people just assume the Giants were tanking. Not only did they have their best defense that no one took, their quarterback, who I constantly make fun of, was our quarterback 5. So anyway, just food for thought. They didn't need it, and the kicker obviously underperforming last night, but who really cares? It was already over. Now, they do have some injury concerns at running back, which was why I was thinking about trying to propose some running back trades to them. Unfortunately, because Raf made some comments about trying to maybe trade or get something from Kelsey. If he was talking about something else, I'll leave that for the two of them to figure it out. If he was talking about a trade, I did warn last week, the trade deadline has since passed. I don't believe you can make trades anymore. Adds and drops, yes, as far as you want, but trades, no bueno. That's why you got to listen to me, folks. Kelsey, Frankie. Now, this could be Kelsey just mourning the loss of Frankie in terms of him flying back home. Maybe they do conference calls. Maybe Frankie has a cocktail and just tells her what he thinks. Maybe not so much. In this particular case, not a lot to celebrate. Although Kelsey, while he underperformed, it was not a great weekend for tight ends. He was our tight end 4, and only 2 tight ends that people actually took were in the top 5. So that's something nice. Obviously, there was some buy issues, but some hurt issues. Things have to kind of sort themselves out. Miami coming back, and now you get an idea of who might be getting played, and there might be more shedding light on what is happening. But obviously, Burrow being out, he's just been the killer in every league I've been in. Whoever has Burrow, it stinks because he was hurt at the beginning of the year. You held on strong. Last couple weeks, he was really looking like he was going to make a push. Odds makers in Vegas put him back on the MVP watch. Cincinnati was kind of the darling team to make this run in the second half. Without Burrow, though, I don't think it's super likely. Unfortunately, Kelsey, that does make it a lot more difficult to make the playoffs. You are not mathematically out yet, I don't believe, but you are pretty much going to have to sweep the table. So bounce back, have an awesome week, and see how it goes. Raf, congratulations. After a loss that I'll get to later, you do jump up to a tie for second place, but with your points scored, you do get the sole spot of second. Pamela also lost, so there's a bit of a gap that you are now, starting to make slightly less, and if you want the regular season title, which does come with a money-back guarantee, you're on the right track. So keep going. Best of luck next week, because I know you're not playing me, so I can actually wish you good luck. Although, not going to lie, I think all of us in the bottom part just need everyone in the top part to keep losing. Kelsey, don't give up on this one. I know it sucks. It's been a trying year, but get all the bad luck out. Let's see what happens. Maybe you go on a run. Oddly enough, our 2 household matchups did have our 2 biggest scores. So a few points less, and it gets a little tighter in the 130s. But Jules and Lara, congratulations on a huge win, vaulting you into the top 4. You are securing your playoff spot and making it a little bit more safe. Paul, unfortunately, falls down to 7th. This was a costly loss for him, and not just with the players played, but also he might have some concerns to take a look at. So let's take a quick gander. Now, Dax did not go off like he did last week, but your quarterbacks were just fine. Now, one thing to bear in mind with your running backs, yes, McCaffrey was our running back 5, but you see Mixon just behind. He was actually our running back 6, so well done there. That was getting your running back solidified is always going to give you kind of an extra edge. You had our top scoring kicker, so congrats. I mean, that's something kind of fluky, and there's only 2 kickers in the top 5 that were taken. You have the first one, so congrats. Even your other running back, White, did quite He did fine. You're getting a touchdown. So you're getting good production on your running backs. I think it's your receivers that were a little less consistent, a little underperforming, and that includes our almost always in the top 5 tight end. Like I said, it was a down week for most tight ends, so that didn't really help you out. In terms of the bench, Fields is back. He looked okay. I don't blame you for not trusting him first week back from an injury because you never really know. And he was away, and you're not really sure. Same with Achane. Coming back for the first time, he didn't get a lot of carries, and he did have to leave the game with a little bit of injury. So something to bear in mind. Now, running back, you seem like you're fine. Receiver, you got Olave coming back next week, so it looks like we're going into form. Now, I cannot wish you good luck next week because I'm pretty sure I know who your opponent is. But well done in winning this week. I can say that with a genuine flair. Paul, like I said, I think you're doing fine. Unfortunately, your strategy of not making any move whatsoever after a first few weeks kind of helped you and hurt you. Eckler, who was on a bye week and was off for a bit, you haven't put him back in your lineup. I actually do think you did make this move because he was your flex. So congratulations, you made a flip. It didn't really, it worked out for 0.8. Cool. So good call. Chase, you kept off the board. Now you do have a lot of wide receivers, so you put in not putting in Chase instead of McLaren. Could have gone either way, but the big one, I think, Purdy, it wouldn't have killed it for you, but Purdy was actually our quarterback too, so that could have helped you out. But nice to know you have some depth on the bench. You just kind of drops a spot here, but you were certainly not out. You're a couple wins away, but you as well, similar advice to Kelsey. No more weeks to be wasted. You do have to make a run here. Now, I should also say, I will say this again in the final, you also got your burnt week out. So as you know, you already owe 2 rounds, as did Kelsey's team, but Kelsey's lost the 3rd one last week, so then that team no longer qualifies. You were the next one up. So you actually have your burnt week. That's back-to-back dead weeks, which is good because we got a lot of people that owe drinks, which means if either Kelsey and Frankie's team or Paul's team is the lowest, or if in this case it would be if it finished like this again next week, we would go to the 3rd lowest score because we now skip them over now that we have dead weeks. So if you have any questions, as always, explain, but no one's asking, so I'm assuming people know. Again, congrats, Jules and Laura. You are formally right now in the playoffs if it ended today. Paul, season's still got a couple weeks left, 4, I believe, so let's get after it. In a super, super weird matchup, and my voice didn't crack just because I had just a sip of water. Also, it was a perplexing one. It was highs and lows, and for Pamela, you hang on to your number 1 overall spot, but the loss does mean that now Jackie and Raf are more within striking distance, so something to bear in mind there. And when I say ebbs and flows, for your particular team, you had massive performances. Lawrence, this was finally the performance people have been waiting for all year. He was our quarterback 1, doubling is predicted almost. Hill, you're used to these over performances. Now, he did actually get hurt and leave again and then come back in, but he's been doing that fairly consistently. He was our wide receiver 4. Barkley was our running back 1, which is his by far best performance of the year. So you had 1-1-4 in terms of the skill sets, but everybody else was pretty average to below average. Obviously, now you're dealing with a tight end issue. I saw you kind of address that already because that was the Thursday night game. Andrews is out for the season. Kupp is not out for the season, but he's really not performing the way I think a lot of people thought he would. He was meant to be this kind of second half presence, so unfortunately for you there, he's been a little less consistent. Now, on your bench, you do have some options because obviously Swift and Moore could have helped your cause and could have, I think, maybe potentially pushed you over the top here. And certainly Jefferson, now he may have come back last week. He's supposed to maybe again next week, so you do have that as a potential option. So let's see how it goes from there. But don't fret yet. Like I said, the nice thing about being number 1 is if you win out, you know you get it, right? So you're not dependent on anything else. For me, I finally jumped a spot, but it was not without headache and heartache. Garrett Wilson, my goodness, he has weeks where he goes off minus 0.1. I would have been better if I pulled it and just didn't put anybody in there. That's unfortunate, and made it a little bit more troublesome for me, and part of the reason why I got up was to watch to see if Smith would actually get his 6 or 7 points. My running backs, though, kind of saved me in this case. Now, not one of them was in the top 5, but all 3 of them gave me points. Even my quarterbacks, not in the top 5, but it was quarterback 6 and quarterback 7 in that order. On my bench, I did actually have quarterback 9 as well, so apparently I have a little bit of depth there. But this was a big bye week for me, so I'm very happy that I got through it. 2 huge running backs. So I do have depth in running back, which was why I was shopping some of them, but people weren't always interested, so that's fine. For me, I do have to keep winning. I put myself in this hole, but I'm now within a game or two here of maybe climbing into the playoffs. Pamela, like I said, you're still in the driver's seat. You're still number one in our league. It's just how long can you hold on and can you get some momentum going for the playoffs? If Lawrence is going to play like that, and if your wide receivers can wake up and Jefferson can get healthy, you're still going to be a tough team to beat. And by far the most brutal matchup, and when I say that, it kind of for both sides, there was probably no way of sleeping easy on this one. Now, we'll look at Kate and Nick first since you were successful. Your quarterbacks really helped you out, obviously. Jackson was our quarterback 4. Dobbs wasn't that far behind, but he was over his predicted. Now, in terms of your bench and who you didn't play, it was a good call to leave Goff on the bench. You did dish your Detroit faithful, which actually didn't really help you out in the running game, but that's all right. Kittle was huge for you. He was our tight end 1 and one of the few tight ends that actually did something, and he did it right off the bat. He got his touchdown right away, and so you kind of knew what you were in for game-wise there, which must have felt good. And then Baltimore, as always, one of our best kickers. He was our kicker 5, and the only other kicker that people took in the top 5. It was you and Buffalo, and I think it was Jules, right? So well done there. Jackie, you were looking pretty good coming out of the gate. Coming into this morning's game, I think I even told you, if either Mahomes or Brown have at least decent games, you'll probably be okay. Ridley came off and finally had that big game. He was our wide receiver 1. Singletary was a massively good pickup for you in our running back 3. Now, unfortunately, Gus the Bus, Baltimore situation, we never really know who's going to get the ball. He got the goal line carries. Had you put him in for Najee Harris, you would have won in a walk-off, and you would have had another. Gus was actually our running back 3, so that's a little bit disappointing for you. Buffalo, though, huge defense. There was our defense, too, and the best one that someone started. So when you got points, you certainly went off. The biggest thing, Najee Harris just doing nothing against Cleveland, especially when Warren went off. And then A.J. Brown has not had a game like this in, I can't even remember the last time. He was known all season for being super consistent. He catches 1 or 2 more passes, you win. This is an under 2-point differential, one of our tightest of the entire year. And it did come costly. Now, for Kate and Nick, this was important for you to keep that goal in the middle here, to be that 1 game out of a playoff spot. For Jackie, unfortunately, it does mean now you are tied for second, not just a sole possession of second, but with points scored, you drop to the 3 seed. So you're still in the playoffs, damage control. Just it's upsetting because coming into Monday night, it looked like I would have bet a lot of money that Mahomes and Brown, one of the 2 of them, if not both, would have at least been okay. Even that deep ball, if you're watching and it's not dropped, even if it's caught, not a touchdown, you win. So unfortunate for you, but congrats, Kate and Nick. That is a massive win. Really keeps you in contention. You still got to keep kicking ass because obviously you're not in that top 4 yet, but this puts you in a good standing. A loss certainly would have hindered that. Jackie, I'm sorry. What can I say? Gonna have to hit the waiver wire. Let's see what happens for week 12 for you. I mentioned week 12, but let's just have a little sneak peek of week 11 first. Like I said, Pamela's team does have the game in lieu. However, with the points for and against, I would imagine if there's a loss and a win, Raph and James could take the top spot. We got the tie here, so Jackie's hoping to keep pace. Jules is only a game off and does have Jackie on points, so it is going to be quite tight for those 4 to keep their 4 in the spots that they want them. Similarly here, Paul and I are only 1 game behind the 5 spot here, and so Team Kickass has to keep their winning ways, and we're all looking to take Jules and Lara down. So let's see how that fans out. Now, we all play each other in this league so many times, so obviously there's no rest. Jules, you got me next week, and it could be a huge matchup. I got to put myself in a contention, and if you're 4th, I got to take your spot, so we're running out of weeks to do so. Only 4 weeks left in the regular season, so we don't have a whole lot of time to figure that out. Paul gets Raph and James, so that could be a tough one. Raph and James have been on a bit of a run, but you do know they have down weeks, and we know Paul. He has there is a rolling hill as it comes to his scores, and so he has had some down ones, so he's due for a peak. Will Kelsey and Frankie just lick their wounds, roll in the corner, and not put together a lineup? I doubt it. Please don't do that. No one wants that. Plus, then you're just giving Team Kickass the win, and they don't want that. They want a tough. They could be shaking their heads right now, but I'm going to put words into their mouth. They want a tough matchup. They want to feel like they earned it. Plus, like I said, you're getting all your bad luck out of the way, so let's see how it rolls. But Team Kickass, you're looking in a good spot here. You want to make sure that I'm sure the predicteds will be a little bit tighter than this. But a big win can really help your cause in trying to get to that playoff spot. I'd say probably in terms of the league, though, the most important matchup, 1 versus 3. This could be a huge one. Obviously, Jackie could tie Pamela again for the total score win. if she can take her down. And actually, we could have a 3-way tie for first if that came. Or Pamela hasn't lost 2 in a row all year, I do not believe, and I don't think she intends to start right now. So she can take a look at her wide receivers, assess health or who's pissed her off the most or the least, and let's see how this rolls down. As I said, I'm going to be live on the chat group because I got some ideas of how we can maybe celebrate Thanksgiving this week. Please do pay attention to the games, although the people that listen to this are also probably the people who check. Having 3 games on Thursday, 1 on Friday, that is new for us. It does create a little bit, you're not going to be able to get out of not filling in your roster ahead of time. We do have a full slate, though, with Sunday and Monday because there's no bye week, so paying attention to that would be really good. Look at your players, look at your injuries, and let's see how we can finish off strong. Like I said, 4 weeks left, so best of luck, folks, in week 12.